My name is Nick Lilly. I'm the interim executive director for the Downtown Business Association. And of course, we're so excited to be welcoming you all back to downtown for the start of our fall semester. Historically, all three parties have gotten together here for a fantastic block party out on Capitol Boulevard where we shut down the street and have a wonderful time. COVID-19 has obviously thrown a little bit of a wrench into some of that, and yet we're doing things a little bit differently this year, yet giving plenty of opportunity for all our students, all our downtown businesses, and our community here to continue to engage and enjoy this wonderful collaboration. So we're excited to be telling you more today about those changes and what's ahead. Before we do that, though, I do want to establish that while we might be online today, we want to acknowledge that Edmonton and our downtown community is located on Treaty 6 territory, and we respect the histories, languages, cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First People of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant downtown community. So today I am very pleased to be joined by two wonderful guests, Dr. Annette Trimby from MacEwan University, who is the new president and vice chancellor for the university. Hello, Annette.
Hello.
And of course, Carolyn Campbell, who is the new incoming president and CEO of NorQuest College. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, and what we're going to be doing here over the next hour or so is firstly giving both these wonderful individuals the chance to welcome you all in their own way, following which we're going to get into, I think, what is a very important conversation about how we as a community can foster a more inclusive downtown. So I think that's going to be a fantastic thing to be talking about. At the close of that, we will be going through a little more detail about what's in store for the month ahead as we do kick off this virtual and yet also in-person block party over the next month. I want you to know how to make the most of the days ahead and all of the different community activities that we'll have in store. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over here to Dr. Annette Trimby to give her remarks, and then we'll be back in a minute.
Well, thank you, Nick, and it's a pleasure to be here today with everybody. Thank you for joining. My name's Annette Trimby. I'm new to MacEwan, but I'm not new to the city of Edmonton. I lived here for 30 years, went back to Winnipeg for 6, and now I'm back. I want to start by welcoming our students, faculty, and staff back to campus, whether you are here in person, are here in virtually, or a little bit of both. I'm one of those people that has always gotten unbelievably excited about the first day of school. I grew up in a large family, and I was that one kid who actually practiced waking up early in about the middle of August because I was so excited to get back. I love seeing our hallways and our classrooms full of students. I love the idea of new beginnings, the incredible energy and excitement that comes with campus life. And this fall is a fall like no other, but I can tell you I am still enjoying walking around campus. Yes, I'm wearing a mask. Yes, it's a little harder to engage with people, but we're still finding ways of being connected. One of the things that COVID has taught us is just how much we crave those connections. This is my first downtown block party. I'm looking forward to hearing a little more about all of the activities that have been planned. There's something about Nick. I'm already enthusiastic. I don't even have a clue what's in store, but I know it will be a lot of fun. I love downtown universities. I love downtown universities because of the kinds of faculty, staff, and students they attract. I love how they interact with community. I have been gone for 6 years. I cannot believe the changes that have taken place in downtown Edmonton. A lot of these ideas were planned before I left, but it's more than buildings. We have a new ice arena. We have many more buildings on the MacEwan campus, on the NorQuest campus. But I think about what happens in those buildings. I think about how people move through downtown. I love that we've connected with the River Valley. I love that we celebrate our iconic buildings. MacEwan is a very special university. I haven't yet a post-secondary president that won't tell you their school is really, really special. We are, I mean it. We're very student-centered. We have this secret sauce. We really care. We inspire our students. And if I think about MacEwan and the very special place it's played in downtown Edmonton, I'm very proud to be here at this particular point in time. So I want to thank the Downtown Business Association. I want to thank my colleague, Carolyn Campbell, who reached out to me before I even arrived back in Edmonton. And we've already been plotting and planning about how to do more together, how to partner with the other post-secondary institutions in the city of Edmonton, and how to grow in an intentional way. We think education is key to Edmonton's recovery, key to a thing called COVID. We have great plans to upskill, reskill, and graduate people who are ready for work and who are going to make huge differences in our community. So most importantly, welcome back, faculty, staff, and students. This is going to be an incredible year, a memorable year. Thank you, Nick.
Well, thank you so much, Annette. And I certainly want to now give the floor over to Carolyn Campbell to enjoy some of her remarks too, and welcome everyone go forward. So Carolyn, over to you.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you to Dr. Trimby, our partners at the Downtown Business Association, and of course, all the students who are joining us today on the live stream. I know this block party is a really great annual event, and I was so looking forward to connecting with you face to face. Unfortunately, that's not something we get to do this year, but what a great alternative. So congrats to the DBA for embracing this new reality. Thanks also for allowing us the opportunity to connect with our students and downtown neighbors to kick off another wonderful school year. Like you, Annette, I am so excited. And I'm excited that we'll be chatting about inclusion a little later on. And you know, it strikes me that inclusion is a big part of the community we're building here among students, business, and neighbors. Indeed, our NorQuest College community reflects our city. We're diverse, energetic, and full of initiative. Did you know we have 119 countries represented here? That's 115 languages that are spoken by those students, the students that we have here at NorQuest. And NorQuest is recognized locally and nationally as an organization that is a leader in diversity and inclusion. We're also proud to serve a growing number of this country's Indigenous peoples. Over 700 of our students self-identify as Indigenous. If you are looking for a snapshot of Canada's diversity, you are most welcome to walk through our doors once it's safe to do so. It's impossible for me to talk about NorQuest diversity without touching on the protests and conversations that have been happening in Edmonton and around the world for some time, and with growing focus most recently. When I joined the college, it was in part because NorQuest is and has been a leader when it comes to diversity and inclusion. But as we're learning, more can, must, and will be done to live the values that we proclaim. It's also why I'm excited to discuss a little later what we have planned to better understand our role, engage with communities, and help other organizations better understand their roles too, along with MacEwan and the DBA through NorQuest College Institute for Inclusive Leadership. Earlier this summer, I started my journey as president and CEO from a place of learning. It's been a really exciting time learning about NorQuest from students, instructors, staff, and literally hundreds of people at the college. That's all being done with an eye to engaging more meaningfully with our partners outside NorQuest, and you are vital to our success. NorQuest students are at the core of Edmonton's economy. NorQuest College adds around $470 million of total income to Edmonton's regional economy. That's equivalent to supporting over 5,700 jobs in this region. As we emerge from the global pandemic, we face unprecedented economic and social challenges. You know this. Closer to home, it's a new fiscal reality for post-secondaries in Alberta. And we will need to continue to evolve and innovate to weather those challenges. I'm so glad to be joining a nimble and entrepreneurial organization at NorQuest that has been focused on identifying new opportunities, new industry needs, and new ways of delivering exceptional education experiences for our students. We aim to be partners in Alberta's relaunch and are looking for all kinds of opportunities to grow our way out of one of the greatest challenges in its history. That's why we're reaching out to government, to other post-secondaries, and have had just a wonderful dinner, as Annette mentioned already, talking about what we can do together. And we're reaching out to the business community to understand how we can be partners in building. So this is where I invite you to help us support an innovative ecosystem and help us work together to kickstart recovery in Edmonton and beyond. And I encourage you to invite us to your tables. See if there's an opportunity where NorQuest can help. As we think about the future, here at NorQuest, we think our future is more exciting than ever before. Disruption is the name of the game right now, and the world is changing at an enormous rate. The world of post-secondary education is obviously no exception. We're working on offerings to help our students be ready for the jobs of today and tomorrow, but also to support the needs of industry and business. Here's a few examples. So we've got programs such as the Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Micro-Credential, the Indigenous Studies Diploma, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Micro-Credential, and our Energy Management Diploma, as well as a Palliative Care Post-Diploma Certificate. We'll be ready to provide the skills needed for students who will be at the front lines of Alberta's recovery and support business and industry to build our way into economic success. We're ready to push boundaries, move out of comfort zones, and become more self-sufficient. We've always valued our partnerships with the City of Edmonton, the Downtown Business Association, and with MacEwan University as we collectively work to evolve in our classrooms, on our campus, through our dynamic downtown, and into the world. We remain committed to delivering education that serves the community of students, residents, institutions, and business as Edmonton's community college. And I can't wait to show you what we have in store. Thank you, Nick.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Carolyn, for those remarks, and to you as well, Annette. You know, I think underscored in so much of what I just heard from both of you is that while we are undoubtedly in very challenging straits within COVID-19 and the impacts that that's had, the focus on learning and our notion of how we grow as a community is going to be so essential in our recovery. And I think it reinforces a lot of what we heard in a very recent report that the Downtown Business Association did, where we were looking at sort of the research backbone of how do communities become more resilient? How can we come out of this stronger than ever and recover? And we saw 4 core drivers emerge from that research that really went to fostering innovation, strengthening cultural vitality, developing interconnectivity, and then enhancing inclusivity. And so through the course of that, I think it offers our downtown community some element of a roadmap in terms of where we go from here if we are going to come out of this in such a fashion that we become and continue to grow as the community that I think we all expect. And that in doing that, we're going to need great partnerships. We're going to need great insight from our leaders. And that's what somewhat of this conversation is about here today. So I'm going to pivot a little bit now into that conversation that we wanted to have about how can we go forward in fostering a more inclusive downtown. And I know the topics of equity, diversity, and inclusion have been top of mind for your organizations for some time. But obviously, as both of you mentioned, these topics have only become more prominent of late as the Black Lives Matter movement and additional calls for reconciliation with our Indigenous communities have really brought this into focus. So maybe let's start at a bit more of a foundational level. You know, knowing how important it is to be clear about what these terms mean. And Nat, maybe can you start us off by saying, well, what does it mean to be inclusive, and what does an inclusive community actually look like?
An inclusive community means people have a sense of belonging. An inclusive community values differences. Some differences are visible, some differences are not so visible. Culture, language, gender, sexual orientation, age, spiritual differences, life experiences, differences in ability. Inclusivity it's more than being diverse. And a colleague of mine once put it this way: it's not enough to just invite me to the dance. I really hope somebody asks me to dance. Even better, could I pick some of the music? Even better, could I teach you a new dance? An inclusive environment is one that is willing to explore those differences. Our future is really dependent on all of us being able to thrive. When you think about the students that come to our post-secondary sector, some students are older, but a lot of students are right out of high school or just a couple of years out. That's a very interesting time in people's lives. It's a time when people are really questioning who they are. And one of the things I had the privilege of doing when I was in Winnipeg, I got to spend a fair amount of time with Senator Murray St. Clair. And he talks about 4 key questions that we all have as people. Where do I come from? Where am I going? Why am I here? Who am I? Our institutions offer a transformative experience, not just a transactional experience. So it's really critical that our students, the students that attend our campuses, feel that they belong and we have an inclusive community. We have a long ways to go. EDI, this conversation has been happening across universities and colleges across Canada for many years. And in my previous role, we spent a lot of time thinking about it through the lens of Winnipeg's Indigenous community. And obviously, recent efforts or focus has been on Black Lives Matter. And these are really interesting times. And again, I think it's important for universities to lead in these conversations, to make the changes we need to make on our campuses to have an impact inside and also have an impact outside. And one of the key roles we play is we are conveners. We welcome in tough conversations. It's okay to disagree on our campuses, but at the same time, our spaces need to be safe enough for people to explore and probe these differences. Sometimes when people think about equity, diversity, and inclusion, they talk as though that's separate from excellence. And it isn't. It's not one or the other. I think we need all hands on deck. We need to talk about it in terms of the talent. There is more than one way to see the world. We're dealing with a lot of complicated issues. So it's time to create communities where everybody can contribute to their maximum.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Annette, for that. Carolyn, any thoughts on the same topic? You know, what does it mean to be inclusive? And from your perspective, what does an inclusive community look like?
Absolutely. And I think that, Annette, that was extraordinarily well and beautifully said. I'll add to that being inclusive really means leaning into difference. It means doing that even and especially when it feels uncomfortable or challenging, even clashing. I think inclusive organizations are ones where everyone has the resources that they need to perform to their best, that their impact on organizational decision making and operations is visible, and they're not disproportionately vulnerable by reasons of identity. And I think this all adds up to an organization where inclusion is seen as the source of innovation, of creativity, of growth, and of learning. And it also means being willing to engage in self-reflection and action as a process of continual improvement. And that's something that our executive team and our senior leadership team, and frankly throughout the whole college, we're really working on a lot right now.
Excellent. Well, I think, you know, I already heard a little bit of this just as both of you were speaking, but I want to ensure that everyone listening here today really has this very clear sense of why inclusion is something we should be striving for, and how do we benefit from that. I think I heard innovation, I heard creativity as a function of all that, but Carolyn, maybe just expand if you can, just to touch on that and your thoughts on why that's so important.
Well, sure. I mean, like identifying and reducing structural inequities like barriers and biases. The why is it improves the experience of an organization for everybody, for all employees. Often we think of a particular policy or practice as an individual response, and often those who feel there is no impact and don't engage feel they are not impacted by inequities. But making changes so that all employees are able to meaningfully and effectively engage is critical. It's critical to the experience and success of our learners, to our staff, to our communities. And I think this collective is more important than ever.
Great. And Annette, any other thoughts, anything to add on that?
Well, this might sound like a diversion, but hopefully it isn't. My field of study is ecology. And I actually used to look at the impact of perturbations on ecosystems. So a diverse and inclusive ecosystem is just more resilient. It does better. It can adapt to these perturbations. And if you think about it, we're kind of into a big perturbation right now. Just as diverse economies do better, so do diverse communities. So think about it, we're really in a time of uncertainty. And if you think about how people invest money, they want this diverse portfolio and so on. So again, it's, I think inclusion and excellence go hand in hand, and we need to remind people of that. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, we have lots of complicated issues to kind of work through. That's what I would add to Carolyn's comment about the collective. The collective is stronger if the collective is full of people that approach change in different ways.
Well, I love that analogy that you made there, just in terms of a financial portfolio, because I know we have quite a few business individuals, and not to say that the only one's thinking about that, but that analogy, I think, rings true. And, you know, when you're trying to balance your portfolio, you know, it's really in trying to ensure that when risks come at you in different ways, or disruptions come at you in different ways, that there is some resilience in that. And obviously that's very top of mind right now for us at a community level, and also at an institutional level when we're facing such stress due, you know, in no small part to COVID-19. Now, I want to dig into that a little bit from the perspective of, clearly, you know, we were establishing the benefits on this side, but where do you think are some of the key things standing in our way of being more inclusive? And you can take that from an institutional perspective, if you like, or you can broach that from a community level, or both, if you want. Maybe Carolyn, could you kick us off on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about key things standing in our way of being more inclusive, I think prioritizing equity, diversity, and inclusion work with appropriate leadership support and resourcing can be a tremendous obstacle. And I think if we can overcome that, we can get far. I think another thing standing in our way is not being clear about the impacts of not being inclusive. I think as well, not sustaining it over time. So things like one and done training, for example. Another obstacle being the unwillingness to do the hard work of system change. So particularly when it requires addressing uncomfortable subjects like power and privilege. You know, this is complex work, and it can be demanding psychologically at times. I think another thing I'll just end with this is sustaining it is really key. So imprinting it into the organizational life and culture is so helpful.
That's great perspective. Thank you. And Annette, anything to add on that front?
Well, I'll just kind of reinforce and perhaps reframe it just a little bit. You know, first of all, we have to know what's at stake, why it matters. And I think, to Carolyn's point, we can't just approach in a superficial way. It's a complicated issue. And it does get uncomfortable. At my previous university, we were moving along quite far on our indigenization reconciliation journey. And we started to get to the really tough work, because at the end of the day, you start by making people feel welcome, but you have to be willing to actually start to look at the world through a different lens, and perhaps make some changes that influence who has power and who doesn't have power. And I think a big part of it is, you know, we haven't talked a lot about the difference between individual choice and systemic issues. But often, as an individual, you're just not aware of your biases. You're just not aware of the history, and you're not aware of the challenges that other people have felt. So I think a large part of it is you know, it takes time. There's a lot of other things we're dealing with. It has to be a sustained effort, and it can't just be one person. It can't be corner of the desk. It has to be embedded in a whole variety of places in large institutions like the one Carolyn and I run, like the ones Carolyn and I run.
I think what you're saying there is so important. You know, this notion of prospectively superficial activities that don't go to the core of how you want to address some of this issue and the sustainability factor of that. And I've had the pleasure of joining the Downtown Business Association here within the last couple of months. And I think we're really thinking about that in earnest and trying to do more listening and certainly engaging in education to try and start with ourselves even as an organization, and looking at how we can be more mindful of inclusion within not only our organization but out into the community. And that's one of the beauties, I think, of being a representative for the business community, is hopefully we can take some of those learnings and share them out in different ways. So there's a couple of things I think we're going to talk about here in short order in that vein. But before we do, I want to talk specifically about your institutions. And maybe Annette, you can go first and just sort of outlining maybe what are some of those tangible ways that you're currently fostering greater diversity and inclusion within your organization.
When you're new to an institution, you ask a lot of questions, and your frame of reference is always where you have come from. So I start with questions around how other people might see us with a diversity lens. So if you think about it, our students, the students at MacEwan, the students at NorQuest, the students across campuses all over Canada are changing more rapidly than our faculty and staff, because our students are on our campuses for a few years and our faculty and staff may be on our campuses for decades, right? So in a perfect world, it starts with having a faculty and staff complement that is just as diverse, however you measure diversity, as our student body. We're not going to achieve that perfect world, but even that's not perfect enough, because even if you look good from a diversity metric perspective, if you don't create that sense of belonging, if you don't have inclusive practices, you can't go far enough. So I've been asking a lot of questions, and I'm quite impressed with the level of activity at MacEwan University. And it's not centered in one office, it's distributed across the whole academy, across many departments, across many units. But it starts with awareness, education, and from there it moves to a number of specific initiatives that involve students, faculty, and involve community. It's very grassroots driven rather than top down. We attract students who care about these things. We attract students that want to build a better tomorrow and are thinking deep thoughts, for example, about the impact of COVID. So one example I'll throw out is, every year we have a dialogue that goes across campus and involves many different sectors. And this year the dialogue is going to be about COVID-19 and its impact on inequities and so on. So again, I can throw out a whole bunch of initiatives, but I've got to get my head around the sum of the parts. And again, it's grassroots, it's awareness, it's education, it's dealing with the tough subjects, it's not command and control. And you go further when people want to go there than you do if you start imposing a lot of mandatory things on faculty, staff, and students, particularly in an academic environment when, our motto is we learn, right? It's about learning, not by indoctrination.
I think that was beautifully framed and clearly goes to the notion of culture and the values that underpin that. So, Carolyn, from your perspective and now joining up with the NorQuest team and leading the charge, how are you thinking about fostering greater diversity and inclusion within your institution?
Yeah, so I'll start with sharing that NorQuest has long been committed to supporting diversity and inclusion, but we recognize, of course, that there's still more work to be done. One of the first things I did upon starting at NorQuest was challenge the NorQuest executive team to embrace our values and figure out ways to walk that commitment. There had been a lot of work done already within equity, diversion, and inclusion, and it was an opportune moment for me to come in and amplify that and really firmly establish our values. We also established an Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Council. And that represents the depth and breadth of our college. We've established an anti-racism task force. And we're continuing to evolve in these efforts by developing a strategy that both captures our considerable equity, diversion, and inclusion strengths and the gaps we've identified in our ongoing dialogue and assessment of our inclusive culture. And the thing is, like, that we're thinking about is that the strategy continues to move us forward in our culture work, which is very dear to us. And it's something that was really highlighted through many conversations with the incredible NorQuest faculty, staff, and students I've come to know. And as I learn about the richness of their background and their backgrounds and their expertise, I've been doing what I call my listening tour, and I think have met with close to, at least had an opportunity to meet with close to 1,000 of the staff here, video conference, of course. And I'm just really excited to see what's going to emerge through this dialogue and through these conversations.
Wonderful, and I love that idea of the listening tour and the way that you framed it, because I would almost equate that to a little bit of what I've been doing in the last couple of months here at the Downtown Business Association since joining the team, and got a phenomenal board who I think is doing that in the same sort of way. One of the things that I think emerged within the listening that we've been doing is, our business community looking for unique opportunities to really engage with a diverse group of individuals who maybe they just don't know very much about, and there's this appetite for greater understanding and trying to be more empathetic within some of the conversations that we're hearing today. And so I think as we were considering, how best to support our business community in that way, very clearly it's within the learning institutions that clearly have a reputation and expertise in this type of thinking that we want to go to first. And so I'm very pleased to be announcing something today that we've been working together on as sort of a tri-party initiative, a pilot program, which we're calling the Mutual Mentorship Pilot Program, wherein all three of our organizations have come together. And what we're going to be doing over the next few months is giving an opportunity for some of the business executives within the Downtown Business Association community to be matched up with students from the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities and engage in some structured mentoring conversations, wherein I think as an output, we're really hoping that there will be this notion of personal and professional development for our executives, for our students, as we discussed lived experiences, as we look to learn ways we can better support each other and do that from a lens of understanding and empathy. So I'm very excited about this. And for any students that are interested from either NorQuest or MacEwan, you can go onto our Block Party website that you probably got to hear from there today, and there is an application form for your consideration. I'll make note of the fact that several members of our board and myself are actually going to be participating as executives within this pilot program, and we're very excited about that opportunity to learn more and listen over the course of the next few months. So I want to thank both of you, Carol and Annette, and your wonderful teams for really putting some energy behind this pilot program, wherein I think we can go forward and really learn together. So excited about that. I'll take us to maybe one of our last questions here in the time that we have. And it's thinking beyond the scope even of your institutions, and certainly the work of maybe our Downtown Business Association, thinking about what are some other key things, whether students or maybe business professionals can do to foster a more inclusive community. And I want you to really think about that, about downtown, knowing that that's sort of the community that I think we're working so hard together on. And that maybe, can you give us some thoughts, whether it's students or business professionals, maybe both, anything you think we should really be focusing upon?
Well, again, it starts with taking a look at yourself and trying to understand your own biases that we all have and we don't necessarily know we are aware of. So myself, I worked for many years in the public sector, and at University of Canada, we brought somebody in and we had a session on unconscious bias. And I had this real eureka moment because I figured out that I had figured out how to play this game that wasn't quite me. And the game was about, how you behave at a boardroom, and the way you behave at a boardroom. We talked about do you take an individual versus a collective approach? Do you speak directly or do you speak indirectly? And I figured out that I'd actually figured out how to work that room, and I wasn't necessarily, when I then had the opportunity to lead one of those tables, thinking about that one individual or that other individual that might not be as comfortable with the norms of that table. So it starts with us individually trying to understand our unconscious biases. The next step is to spend some time with people that might not think like you, might not look like you, and might see the world in a very different way, and to put yourself in some uncomfortable situation. And then thirdly, we're all part of systems, we're all parts of institutions, we're all leaders. These changes, these systemic changes will happen if we all engage. So individually and collectively, and like I said, we're all parts of systems, we all have a leadership role to play.
Wonderful. I love that in thinking about the role we all have to play here, but underscoring that with the need for greater awareness, self-awareness in some respects around our biases that we do seemingly all carry. Carolyn, anything to add, whether from a student perspective or a business professional perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think just start, right? Start by listening to colleagues, start by listening to your employees, or continue. If you've started, keep going. Invite someone in for lunch, learn about inclusion, or ask someone internal if they'd like to host it maybe. Show your support, model it, especially curiosity and humility. Support programs and pipeline initiatives that bring diversity into your space. And they're probably coming to your attention, so be open to hearing about them, watch for them, listen for these opportunities that come your way. You can look at support employee resource groups, but you said it really well, Nick, about being a co-learner and a co-discoverer. And last, I would say, if there are issues, address them, be seen to be addressing them, learn as much as you can, and share the benefits of a safe, respectful, inclusive workplace where everyone can do their best work.
Wonderful. Well, I think I heard a couple of common points there, and not even just in response to this question, but in thinking about just beginning and starting and leaning in to these conversations, which in many cases may be uncomfortable. And I think you hit it on the head that, through the learning journey, that their growth really does come through some element of discomfort and some vulnerability that needs to be brought to the table to really enable that to happen. We've been thinking a lot here at the Downtown Business Association around how we can support our business community to take some of those first steps. And this sort of came to light even for us in our own organization, having done some of the similar type of education that Annette alluded to, and trying to unpack a little bit of unconscious bias and trying to understand that better, was that, there are some foundational elements that I think most individuals, most organizations could really utilize to help them start to have these conversations. And so we're actually very excited to be announcing another partnership, and this one specifically with the Colborne Institute of Inclusive Leadership at NorQuest College, wherein they have a wonderful Inclusion at Work online course. And the partnership that we've struck here is to make that short online course available to up to 1,300 business employees within our downtown community. And I think in undertaking that, our hope and our expectation is that, our downtown business community will maybe have a few more of those building blocks by which we can continue to engage and grow, to have some of these conversations in a more confident way, and recognizing that education is very much the root of how we come forward and progress from this point into a better future for our downtown community as a more inclusive one. So we're very excited about that. Information with respect to that is available on the Downtown Business Association website. So that's going to be open and available starting today. And we do hope our business community will engage on that front. And thank you, NorQuest, for partnering with us on that. So I want to thank you both because this was a fantastic conversation. I think gave a lot for all of us listening to think about, and prospectively some good strategies as first steps for how we might be able to go forward from here. I do want to swing this back a little bit to the notion of our downtown campus block party, just because I think what we're trying to achieve in all of this is to give so many different ways and platforms by which our students, our business community can continue to engage and foster that sense of community, which is a little bit different now with COVID-19 upon us. And yet, what we've done with Block Party this year is to structure a central website, which links will be certainly open and available to everyone on campus. And what you'll see on there is a wealth of different activities and ways in which you can engage. I'll make note of a couple things specifically today, because this is our big kickoff day. And tonight over at the Parlor Italian Kitchen and Bar on 108th Street, Capitol Boulevard, on the patio, we're going to have Mercy Funk, which is a fantastic and exciting band, be performing out there as a feature event. And then later on, La Fuzz, another great local band, will be participating in outdoor performance outside the Starlight Room downtown. So at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. respectively. But this is all part of a broader program that we've launched, and I'm shamelessly promoting it behind me here, Downtown Live, which is a series of micro performances across our downtown that we've kicked off in August. We're going to run through at least to the end of September. And it's all just short performances right on the front of a business doorstep, which will hopefully give everyone the opportunity to engage with those businesses in a very safe way. And I will just reinforce, I think our downtown business community is doing incredibly well to really provide safety in all their different activities to ensure that you as a consumer, you as a student who is engaging with our community can do so with confidence, because we're all working together to make sure that we can continue to engage and embrace that community atmosphere here downtown. So we do hope to see some people out today at those performances and recognize that it's those businesses who are managing everything on site, but lots of opportunity there, lots more opportunity for Downtown Live that you'll be able to identify on the schedule of events for the block party. So keep looking at that because we're updating on a regular basis. Some of the other features you'll see is a series of downtown tours where we're doing in small groups, socially distanced, giving everyone an opportunity to sign up for those in advance and get a guided tour, in addition to a kind of a fun welcome backpack that you'll get. It's a bit of a treat bag in joining those tours. It's going to include some of these really beautiful reusable masks that we've got from our friends at Tony the Tailors, 104th Street, and also a copy of our downtown guide, which is available now. Really gives you a whole showcase of all the different businesses and attractions we have here downtown, what's open and what to engage with. So certainly sign up for those tours. They're student-led, so another chance to engage with your student body and community. And then you'll also see a range of different community fitness classes out in the parks, all socially distanced and making sure that we're taking due care to make sure those are safely done. And then a whole bunch of fun promotions and discounts for you as students that you'll see up on the website, and more being added daily. For example, our friends at Save On Foods are doing a 10% discount for all students if you show your student ID on select days throughout the course of the month. We're going to keep those going all the way through this month, and so do pay attention to them because we've got some wonderful businesses as well as the student services groups for both NorQuest and MacEwan who have put out some great features that you can engage with and know that you are supported as we re-engage in this time of COVID-19. So all to say, lots of opportunity for all our students, for all our business community to really start engaging together, whether it's virtually or safely in person, as we move forward in the face of COVID-19 in a safe manner, and yet focusing in on fostering that connection, that collaboration, that creativity, which is, I think, the hallmark of our downtown community. So I want to thank you all for thinking and engaging with downtown during these times. I'm going to turn it over sort of for a last remark from each of you, Carolyn and Annette, just as a parting farewell to everyone who joined us here today. Carolyn, any last remarks?
Oh, thank you, Nick. This was just great. I really appreciated the time. I appreciated that you also brought up inclusion at work. That's great. And the mutual mentorship program. And that, as always, it's just an honor to be able to work with you. I think we had a really good conversation. And to all the people who have joined us today, I wish I could just get down in the street and shake all of your hands and say hello, but we're doing that virtually, and it was just so good of you to join us.
Wonderful. And Annette, any last words from you here?
Well, I love live music, but I also want to say that post-secondaries are key to innovation in Edmonton and Alberta. Innovation starts with ideas. It's more than ideas, but ideas come first and foremost from people, and you get innovation when people connect. So MacEwan, we're Edmonton's downtown university. We want to connect. We're open for business. And lastly, I just want to welcome faculty, staff, and students back to MacEwan. And I want to wish our students an awesome, awesome year. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Carolyn.
Well, and thank you, Annette. Thank you, Carolyn, for taking the time today to participate in this kickoff event. Obviously, everyone, so much more that you can engage in. This is just the start, I think, of a conversation and a wonderful series of activities and ways in which you can engage with our downtown community. So really, on behalf of our downtown businesses, I do want to say thank you for everyone who joined us here today, but more so that we're looking forward to seeing you downtown, to safely engaging, and to continuing a wonderful conversation and community that really is the core of what downtown's all about. So take care, everyone, be safe, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.